I have thought about death quite a bit more than most normal people who hold a newborn this week. I have a less than 2-week-old, and while I have marveled at the beginnings and the birth and the dawn of life, I've also thought about death quite a bit. Interestingly, I've been reading a book about aging that shows similarities between the dawn of life and the end of life, a book called Dust to Dust by Jennifer Wilkin. This book, Dust to Dust, a book on aging, seeks to counter the modern American fight against aging. We are an anti-aging culture. Aging is the enemy. But this book, Dust to Dust, seeks to give a vision for growing old in the Christian life, that even as our bodies decay and fail, our inner being is renewed day by day. And in this book on aging, Wilkin points out one of the major problems with Western culture. She says that our way of dealing with death is by avoiding it. Our way of dealing with death is by distracting ourselves from it and avoiding it. And if you've been here a number of weeks for Ecclesiastes, you might think, well, haven't we solved that problem yet? Haven't we talked about death quite a bit already? Maybe you bring kids to church and you're wondering when the pastor's going to stop saying die during the sermon, because it's led to questions in the home. But really, Ecclesiastes, the preacher in Ecclesiastes, is militant against our desire to avoid death, which is why this topic keeps coming up chapter after chapter after chapter. And like many things in the Bible, when something is repeated, we ought not think, I've heard this before, but rather, I must need to hear it again. Ecclesiastes has been militant in forcing us to deal with this inevitable end to all mankind. But not because he wants us to have a drab life, or I want you to have a dreary Sunday morning. Actually, what we'll see today is that the preacher focuses on death because it's only when we deal with that sobering reality that we have a pathway to joy. It is not around death that we get to joy, but through death that we get to joy, at least in the message of Ecclesiastes. At least in the message of Ecclesiastes. And so we're going to read chapter 9. I'll give you your main thing, and we will get on with seeing how death actually leads us to have a clearer vision of joy. Here's Ecclesiastes chapter 9. But all this I laid to heart, examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner. And he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to all. Also, the hearts of the children of man are full of evil, and madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that they go to the dead. But he who is joined with all the living has hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. Go, eat your bread with joy. Drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil, which you toil under the sun. Whatever your heart finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. Again, I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happens to them all. For man does not know his time, like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. I think what we see in Ecclesiastes 9 is dealing with the sober reality of death clarifies our joy in this life. It's not around death. It's not an avoidance of death that we get to happiness. It's through the problem of death that we get to real joy. The preacher says all this he's laid to heart. All this wisdom he's laid to heart. This is a reminder, friends, that what we tend to divide is actually united. We tend to divide our heads and our hearts. We might hear someone say, that's just head knowledge, but not heart knowledge. And we might understand that to mean something like you can know a thing intellectually without believing it or feeling it or loving it, and that is true. And yet our heads and our hearts are not different things. They are different aspects of one thing, which is you. Your head and your heart are not divorced. They are married because you are one being who operates together. Your head and heart work together. We see this pictured in Ecclesiastes. This wisdom, what we might think as head stuff, is actually laid in his heart. Jonathan Edwards calls this the light and the heat. We need both light and heat. Light without heat is not heavenly, so knowledge without love, basically. But also heat without light is missing something heavenly because that affection, that heat is misinformed. We need to lay wisdom to heart. We need, as the Psalm 19 verse 8 says, the laws of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. That when we understand wisdom, when we lay wisdom to heart, when we examine it all, we won't just be correct about things, we will know how to rejoice in the right things. Because the laws of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. So here we have wisdom laid upon the heart, and the wisdom I hope to show you is that dealing with the sober reality of death gets us to the true pathway to joy. The first part of this wisdom is that wisdom can only get you so far. Hasn't this been true throughout Ecclesiastes? There are things you can know and things you can't know. And if you're a parent, you probably say those kinds of things to your children and they get frustrated, but you don't like hearing them from the Lord. You like delivering them but not receiving, the idea that there's just some things you can't know. What can you not know? Verse 1, whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. This probably means that as you go about your life, you will experience both love and hate, but you won't know when they happen or how long they happen. Both are before you, both are in front of you, but you don't know. This is really the theme of Ecclesiastes, that you can't know what's in front of you, what's before you, what happens after you, what comes next, what God is ultimately doing. There's so much big stuff you can't know. But there are some things you can know. The righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. We've seen that you can't use morality to get you protection. You can't be so righteous that you are free from harm in this life. You can't be so wise that you protect yourself from all evil. You can't be so rich or have so much pleasure that you are protected from pain. So if you try to use this life to gather up and store and gain so that you're protected from the ultimate end, you can't do that. There's no gain in this life. And yet, acting wisely and righteously is really valuable. How do you deal with those two things side by side? Well, one way is to see that the righteous and the wise and their deeds, verse 1, are in the hand of God. You may not know what God is doing with his hand, but your deeds are in his hand. What else does man not know? Man knows that the end happens to all, but man does not know when the end happens to him. Again, I saw that under the sun, on this earth, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. All of these things, strength, wisdom, riches or intelligence, knowledge, they're supposed to buy you what you want, but the preacher is saying you can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee that you'll be so intelligent that you will have what you're seeking. So rich, so knowledgeable, so strong, because time and chance, literally time and happenings, happen to them all. There will be so much stuff just this week that happens to you, not is done by you. Things at work, things in your family, emotions of those around you, current events, things around you that happen to you, and we like to live our lives as if most of what happens is what we do and what we're in control of, and the preacher says, nope. Time and happenings happen to them all, and the ultimate example of that is that death comes like a fish trapped in a net. Fish is just swimming along. Didn't know the net was coming today. This is the reality that the preacher is building, that you can know some things, but many things you cannot know. But in all of this, the one thing you need to know is the thing that can give you hope or confidence. Verse 4, he who is joined with all the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. Why? For the living know that they will die. There's something about understanding that your life ends that actually gives you confidence. Remember chapter 7? The wise goes to the house of mourning. The wise person goes to the funeral because this is the end of all mankind, and the living lay it to heart. And now we're told that the living know they will die, but the dead know nothing. So you've got this picture of a lion. King of the kingdom, the lion. But he's dead. And a living dog, compared to a living lion is better. But a living dog compared to a dead lion, living dog is better. And the whole point of this is that even this majestic beast who is now dead has been rendered useless in some way, but the lesser beast, the dog, has an advantage. And the preacher explains that the advantage is this: the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. In rock, paper, scissors, dog does not beat lion, but dead lion loses to living dog. Something happens at the end of your life where you lose what you've stored up. Whatever reward, verse 5, whatever memory, verse 5, it's gone. It's forgotten. Verse 6 explains a little bit more. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. When you're alive, you have a share. When you're dead, you have no more share. And this is an advantage. It gives the living confidence. We should ask the question, that word hope is from the verb that means to be confident. We should ask why knowing that death is the end would give me confidence or hope. Why would that give me confidence or hope? As the 20th century philosopher George Strait once said, there's a difference between living and living well. This is what the preacher is talking about. There's a difference between being alive, having breath, still having a beating heart, and being alive, living well. What's the difference? The wise person who lives well knows that their life ends. They don't distract themselves from that. They don't avoid that reality. They talk about it with their kids because their kids need to know that reality too. None of us lives forever. None of us lives forever. The preacher wants us to know that the same event happens to all. And I think the hint of how this gives us confidence goes back to this idea that the wise and the deeds of the righteous are in the hand of God. The living knows not only that they die, but the living knows that God is in control of their lives, and so the things they do are in his hand. Friends, we cannot, like many around us, buy into an anti-aging culture that seeks to think my body can be young forever. The pinnacle of existence is when you're in your 20s and in your physical prime. The entire industry of billions of dollars to keep you from having a wrinkle, all to keep you to think that the pinnacle of existence is youth and vibrancy. And that implied under all of that is you can live forever. You can be young as long as you can. The wise, the living, know that death is the event that happens to all mankind. They don't hear the siren song of anti-aging folly and get tempted to follow. But not only does this keep us from the folly of thinking we can be young or live forever, seeing the end, seeing death, clarifies the middle. Death brings clarity to our sight. Maybe you felt this before, where your life has flashed before your eyes, whether it was almost getting in a car wreck, narrowly escaping a certain diagnosis. Something has happened where you were sobered and realized that life isn't as long as I thought it was. I'm not as invincible as I thought it was. This could end any moment. And you went home and enjoyed your life differently. Because your sight was clearer that day. This is where the preacher is pushing us. Wisdom is going to clarify our sight so that our hearts work properly, so that our hearts are not attached to various things that they shouldn't be attached to. Seeing the end helps us ask all these questions. If you can't be so righteous that you protect yourself from evil and death, why would you be righteous at all? Well, it's not because you can gain anything from righteousness, but because you live to please the Lord, who is righteous. If you can't grab so much wisdom or pleasure that you take it with you in your coffin, why would you pursue wisdom and pleasure? Well, because under the sun, wisdom is better than folly, and there is real pleasure in your work, because this is how God has made the world. It clarifies all of the pursuits in this life. You and I, friends, we want to stack things up. We want to gain things. We watch shows about hoarders and think we're not like that, and yet our heart hoards things. We want to protect ourselves by gaining in this life. In Ecclesiastes, the preacher is saying, you can't. Because death is the event that happens to you all. Poor, rich, wise, ignorant. Clarifies your sight. In all this, we see in Ecclesiastes that life is not a way to gain things, but life is a gift from the Lord. Life is not a way to gain things. Think of how often you are anxious because you're trying to map down the road to gain. If I do this today, it'll set me up to do that tomorrow, and then I can get to this point by that age. I can build this. I'll have this. But the reality, friends, is you stay on that treadmill. Every moment is just an ability to gain a new moment. And you keep trying to gain, trying to build, trying to find more, trying to get satisfied by gaining, and it never happens. Because we have forsaken the wisdom of Ecclesiastes, that this life is not about gaining, but about receiving a gift. Death clarifies these things. Back to verse 6. What happens to the dead? They have no more reward. They have no more share. And this word share, tithes, 1 through 6 to 7 through 10. These are not two different truths, but two aspects of the same truth, this idea of having a share in this life. And death clarifies really what we should do with this share. Death clarifies that you can't use your share to gain, but you really can enjoy your share. The portion that God has put on your plate, the lot that God has given you in life. Once you stop trying to use it to get more, you can actually receive it joyfully. And so death helps clarify this. If we know ultimately that we can't gain ultimately, we stop trying to gain moment by moment, and we actually pursue joy in the portion on our plate. Here's Ecclesiastes 9, 7 through 10. Go. Eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. That should strike you, that statement. Let your garments always be white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil, which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. You see, the preacher doesn't lead us to be lazy. He doesn't lead us to think, well, we die and lose everything, so nothing matters anyways. Actually, something about death clarifies it such that verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, you do it joyfully and eagerly. There's something about this clarified vision brought about by death that now you're working harder because you know there are some things in God's hands. You see that repetition of hand? In God's hands are the deeds of the righteous, and there are some things that your hand will find to do. And so knowing that God's hand is ultimately in control of the deeds of the righteous and the wise, do with might the things that your hand finds to do. Not because you're going to gain anything, but because this is what God has given you to do today. So do it with your might. This begins with two commands. Go, eat. Friends, remember that commands are blessings. You think of the first man and the woman who received the command to be fruitful, to fill the earth, to rule it, to eat of every tree of the garden save one. Blessed commands, commands of life and joy and prosperity. And here we have blessed commands. Go eat with joy. Drink your wine with a merry heart. God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be white. Let oil not be lacking. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love. Commands that are blessings. Go and eat. The preacher mentions some things to enjoy: bread, wine, wife, work. Eat bread, drink wine, enjoy the wife you love, work hard at your work. A few things to note here, friends. While alcohol has significant dangers, and we should be serious about that, we should often note key moments in which the scriptures tell us that we can drink with merriment. Think, for instance, of Psalm 104, where the Lord is the one who you cause the grass to grow for the livestock and plants for man to cultivate, that he might bring forth food from the earth and wine to gladden the heart of man and oil to make his face shine and bread to strengthen man's heart. The same components in Ecclesiastes 9, oil, bread, wine, in celebratory attire. Here's the key difference. Earlier in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, the preacher has said, I'm going to test my heart. This is verses 1 through 3 of chapter 2. I'm going to test my heart with pleasure. I'm going to search to see if I can cheer my body with wine. Can I make my life happy with pleasure? Can I cheer my heart with wine? Ultimately, he says, no. But then later he says, drink your wine with a merry heart. I think you could say here that there's a difference between drinking for merriment and drinking with merriment. That just like any pleasure in this world, food, sex, wine, if you use it to get happy, your heart will be a bottomless void. But used properly with God's blessing, it can be quite cheerful. You don't eat for pleasure, you eat with pleasure. We'll see more about this from the New Testament here in a second, but this is the point. This is an overwhelmingly positive paragraph. So much so that the scholar I have studied the most who thinks Ecclesiastes is really more of a do the best with what you got book. Or as one scholar has said, make the best of a bad circumstance. That's how many smart, godly people read paragraphs like this. Hey, you're going to die, so do the best while you got it. I think this is far more positive than that. So much about joy in Ecclesiastes. Go, eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart. Here's a clue. Let your garments be white and let oil not be lacking on your head. This is celebratory. This is wedding garb, not funeral garb. Go, enjoy life with the wife whom you love. There's something about death that once we reckon with the fact that it ends all things, we can't gain anything, we can't take it with us when we go, it actually clarifies the path to true joy. Rather than resigning is kind of like giving up and saying, well, I'm going to die, so I might as well have a little fun while I'm here. Rather than that, the preacher leads us to say, because nothing can get me gain, it's all a gift. And to be enjoyed like it's a gift. And there is a world of difference, friends, between enjoying the stuff or the people or the food you have as a gift or in order to gain. All of Ecclesiastes is pushing us to give up on gaining in this world, and instead, Ecclesiastes 5, receive all things from God's hand as a gift and receive from him the power to enjoy that gift. And in the context of this chapter, death helps clarify that vision. There are two more clues, I think, that lead this to be an overwhelmingly positive paragraph. The words portion and a little hidden word, sight. Building this idea that death actually leads to a clearer vision of the path to joy. The word portion. This word has cropped up in most of the joy passages in Ecclesiastes. And there's a tie. If you think about being at dinner, and you have a plate, and you have food on the plate, you have a portion. You can only enjoy the portion on your plate. You can't enjoy the portion on someone else's plate, and you can't enjoy the second portion while you're with the first portion. All you can do is enjoy the portion on your plate. This is the thrust of the preacher's wisdom. All you can do, and you can really do it, is look at what you have today and find joy in it. Portion. Again, this wise and godly man who thinks that Ecclesiastes really is making the best of a bad situation says, the mention of portion in chapter 9 anticipates the present call to enjoyment, which seems more positive than the other calls to enjoyment. Here is not a resignation, but a realization. Because the portion is all that I have, I really can enjoy it. This portion is not a stepping stone to a next portion. That's one way to kill your joy in what you have, is to see it as a way to get more. To see the current moment in your work, the current moment in your family as a way to get something else. Or, and this is sinister, and it happens in my heart, I'm sure it happens in yours too, to see your relationship with the Lord as a means of getting something else. a way of improving your life, a way of being impressive towards others. And I wonder why there's a lack of joy sometimes in that relationship, because oftentimes, I am tempted not to see the Lord as my portion, but as a way to get somewhere else. But friends, you can't enjoy a different portion than what you have. You can only enjoy what's in front of you. This idea of portion crops up in chapter 5 and here in chapter 9, in many passages that call us to pursue by God's power real joy in the gifts God has given us. Look at chapter 2, verse 24 to 26, 5, 18 through 20, 7, verse 14, 8, verse 15, 9, verse 9, all passages saying when you give up on gaining in this world, you can find real joy. Importantly, death does not overshadow this reality. Death clarifies this reality. Again, if you've ever had a moment where your life flashed before your eyes and you realized how fleeting this life is and you went and hugged someone a little tighter or saw with more clarity the beauty of the gifts that you have and enjoyed them a little bit more that day, you have seen the benefit that understanding the end of all things can bring to your sight. Death clarifies our sight so that we can really enjoy the portion on our plate, which leads us to another word, the word sight, which is not clear in our passage. Verse 9, enjoy life with the wife whom you love. Another one of these commands, enjoy. In chapter 2, I showed you that the phrase find enjoyment is most literally see good. It's a forceful phrase. See good in the portion in front of you. Remember, contentment is not never wanting anything different. Contentment is not giving up and hopelessly saying, well, nothing will change. Contentment is saying, right now, with what I have, what is good in it? And training your mind to receive as a gift from the Lord what is good, to see it. This word, enjoy life, interestingly, is just the word see. Hi, little friend. Just the word see. It's probably a shorthand. After all that is said and done in Ecclesiastes, just this little shorthand. See the wife whom you love. See. You can't enjoy something you don't see. Or in modern terms, you can't enjoy something you don't pay attention to. See life with the wife whom you love. If you want to enjoy it, see it, is what the preacher is saying. What does this mean for us? Like I said, you cannot enjoy what you don't see. A brief application, friends, in modern times. There is a quicksand-like trap for us. If you're a millennial, you've seen the memes of, I thought quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem in life based on children's shows, right? Well, there is a quicksand-like trap. A trap that you step into and you think you're fine for a while, but it slowly overcomes you to the point where you're in too deep before you realize you need to get out. And I think this quicksand-like trap is offering your eyes, your sight, your mind to everything that's not around you rather than what is around you. This teleportation device allows you to be anywhere but here. Everywhere but where you are. And what we don't realize is, at first it doesn't change us much when we flick, we open. But we keep going back and we keep going back, and all of a sudden we feel a little bit of a haze. Our mind is elsewhere. We know we have good things in front of us, but we're clouded in our vision. We have a hard time narrowing in on the beauty of the creation around us, of the people around us, of the good food in front of us. All of it is clouded, and it's a little bit like a kid who gets water in their goggles. The goggles are clear. The water is clear, but you can't see through them when you have water in your goggles. I'll give you this vision that often when we are in front of good things and we willingly take ourselves to other rooms, other countries, other places through this teleportation device, we are filling our goggles with water so that we can't see what's in front of us. And if you can't see it, you can't enjoy it. If you can't see it, friends, you can't enjoy it. We have to push back against the digital age to fix our eyes on what's in front of us. To go outside, to feel the wind, to watch the sunset. To deeply cherish a hearty meal. To feel the briskness of the morning after the humidity of the summer. To actually see what's in front of us before we can possibly enjoy it. And I think that's what the preacher's getting at when he just uses the word see. See life with the wife whom you love. Death helps clarify this, friends, because though our hearts want something new, want something different, we realize that no stacking up of new or different will actually produce us ultimate or lasting joy. All we have is to enjoy what's in front of us. And to do that, we must see it. There's a phrase in here that I said should strike you. Verse 7, go eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. What? Aren't we the people that say, God has forgiven me for the sins I've already committed and the ones I'm going to commit? Aren't we keenly aware that we're going to do foolish, sinful things this week? And yet the preacher says, God has now approved what you do. What could that mean? Well, what else does Ecclesiastes teach? In chapter 11 and chapter 12, Ecclesiastes teaches that God will bring all deeds, good and bad, into judgment. There is a difference between good and bad deeds. This is not a Miley Cyrus, only God can judge me, that gives me liberty to do whatever I want, because the book is saying there is a judgment of good and bad. Chapter 3 says there's nothing better to do than to be good, or to do good and be joyful. Chapter 2 distinguishes between the sinner and the one who pleases God. All these things show together that God seriously weighs our actions, and some actions are pleasing while others are not. And still, this verse says something. God has now approved what you do. I think it's saying God is approving this type of enjoyment of the things that he's given you. Yes, Christian, you can enjoy things too much. You can also enjoy them too little. Hear this from 1 Timothy. It's a curious little passage in 1 Timothy. That the lead up to this is that Paul says there are demonic teachings in the church. And what is the demonic teaching? People who are liars, verse 3, who forbid marriage and require abstinence from foods. Isn't that interesting that the demonic teaching, go check my work, verses 1 to 2. The demonic teaching is don't eat that and don't enjoy the physical pleasure of marriage. Don't have the pleasures of this world. And what is Paul's response? These are things that God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving. For it is made holy by the word of God and prayer. God has already approved what you do does not mean do whatever you want to do. It means for the person who fears God and pleases him, or in the words of 1 Timothy, who believe and know the truth, for that person, God has approved for you to go and eat. to enjoy life with the wife whom you love, to work hard and have the satisfaction of a good work day, to eat food, to enjoy the physical pleasures of marriage within marriage. God has approved that. And in the words of Ecclesiastes, he wants to give us the power to enjoy the good things that he's given us. So how do we enjoy God's good gifts? We remember that God has created good things good, and that there is so much in this world to be received as a good gift from God. You can make food holy by the word of God and prayer, by saying, isn't it a treat that God has given me rich food to eat rather than sustained me on slop? There's a wonderful little book called The Fountain of Life by Samuel Parkinson, where he talks about God's fullness and how God's fullness spills into creation. And one of the things he argues is that as Christians, if we see God as full in himself, Father, Son, and Spirit, having everything in himself, all the life and blessedness and fullness and happiness that spills over into creation, such that all the beauty and goodness in creation is from God running over, overflowing. That every time we see goodness and beauty in creation, we can say, it didn't have to be this way. When you spend time with a friend and it's rich, you can say, it didn't have to be this way, but God made it this way. When you eat food and it's rich, you can rejoice and say, it didn't have to be this way, but God made it this way. When you enjoy the physical pleasures of marriage, you can say, it didn't have to be this way, but God made it this way. When you drink wine with a merry heart, with thanksgiving, you can say, it didn't have to be this way, but God made it this way. When you see beauty in creation, you can stack up thing after thing after thing. When you say, man, the color green goes really well with the color blue, and that's everywhere in all of creation, you can say it didn't have to be this way. But God has created things good, and they are to be enjoyed if received with thanksgiving, and they are made holy by a happy heart that is eager to give thanks to God. God has approved what you do. Go, eat, enjoy, see good. And all of this clarified by the fact that you don't know how many days you have, friend. The same event happens to us all. But rather than lead to a drab life, this leads to a joyful life. I'll leave you with this, friend, that in America there is so much opportunity. It's one of the reasons America is wonderful, is because there's opportunity to change or to grow or to develop or to build. But even then, that can confuse us into living a life that is all about growing, building, changing, and developing. Always about the next opportunity. And if we're always about the next opportunity, forgetting that death renders all opportunities neutral, we will fail to see what is in front of us. All the people, all the stuff, all the events in front of us will simply be a means to get elsewhere rather than a source of joy and a chance to thank the Lord. So friend, do not let your opportunity for more or better or different cloud your vision of seeing what is truly in front of you. See the portion that is on your plate. Know that your days are numbered, but enjoy them with gladness while you have them. Eat, drink with joy, love the wife whom you have, work hard at the work God has given you, because everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if received with thanksgiving, for it is made holy by the word of God and prayer. Let's pray.